I've been having the weirdest time trying to talk about romanticizing life for neurodivergence, and there are a handful of reasons for that. One of them is I come to be aware that most people don't see or hear the term the way I do. Not surprising, it's often how my life works. So I don't want to, let's just start by saying I'll explain how I see it, and that's pretty much the context to take it in. Because I'm coming across this thing where people are like, oh, I'm pro-romanticizing my life. I've bought all of the stuff. That's not really what I mean. Some people are like, I mean, these are specific examples, but some people are like, oh, I'm anti-romanticizing life. It's nothing but consumerist culture, and it's just there to look fake on social media. That's also not what I'm talking about. For me, romanticizing life is about taking pleasure in small things, small moments, shifting something that might be toward the negative as much as you can toward the positive, doing something that helps you to enjoy a task, even if it's not inherently enjoyable, to add more joy to it, or just truly adding as much joy as you can where you can find it. It's an amazing medicine, and I think we all need more of it. Joy needs to be inserted, I truly believe, into a lot of modern daily things because it's not necessarily there inherently. It's sometimes something where you're doing a million chores or you're living your life. It doesn't feel like you're doing a whole lot down your life path towards your life goal. Sometimes it just feels like everything is stagnant. I remember having a time in my life, I'm Aviana Lemaire, welcome to Coffee with Avila, where I'm already discussing neurodivergence and greater living. I remember a time in my life where I got so overwhelmed, and yes, this would fall into overwhelmed. I feel like the D did not come out. Let's get the D back in. I got so overwhelmed. It would definitely fall into the category of a neurodivergent burnout, a burnout situation, and that's not really what I'm talking about today, but I was extremely burnt out, and it was just a real aspect of my life. Things were going on, a lot of issues were wrong. My living situation was even worse at the time. I still didn't know for certain that I'm autistic, that I was autistic. At the time, I had no idea. I had no idea, even though my head was full of instincts for how I should live and how to take care of myself, how important those instincts were. I'd been through a life where a lot of stuff was traumatized out of me. Kind of, how can you get someone to act more NT? In my experience, what happened to me that caused that, to whatever degree it was possible, because I know it wasn't 100%, but all of that stuff just came from sheer constant torture. Just came from nitpicking everything. Nothing I did was correct. My expressions on birthdays and Christmas weren't enough. Nothing that I did seemed to suit any level of anything being average or acceptable or typical. And so based on what was happening to me at any given time, it literally was just torture that taught me how not to be myself and how not to be okay and how not to take care of myself. So honestly, for me, romanticizing the things in my life where I take that as the approach, where I decide I want to add some beauty, I want to increase the beauty, I want this thing to feel better than it naturally does right now, it's honestly been it's been trauma care. It's been healing the parts of me functionally in the moment and over time. I have been healing myself and my wounds with this knowledge that God gave me how to take care of myself, built into my brain. I was born knowing, ew, that smells horrible, stay away from it. Or, wow, I don't like that sound, let's not make that sound again. And then it was just a life of being tortured until I was like, okay, I can stand here and I can deal with the horrible sensory input and I can act like it's not bothering me, because if I have an expression or I show a feeling, all of a sudden bad things happen. So I learned not to follow my instinct, but I was born with that instinct and God is bringing it back to me. And I'm learning how to take a moment. Like, I've even made a list. I'm trying to go with this. I'm making a list of things that I have done in my life that are practical non-over the top, because I'm not talking about over the top impossible things. If I were trying to represent myself as being a huge fan of over the top impossible things, it would be a little insane on my part, because when it comes down to the social media version of what's supposed to be so great and so over the top, that's not stuff I even necessarily have access to or want access to. I am not yet in a position to move into the perfect, what did I call it once? I'm not sure if I really want this, but on paper it sounds nice. A hobbit house in the woods, away from absolutely everybody. If I were living on the perfect planet somewhere in the Star Trek realm, and I knew that no one was going to, do all that stuff that sometimes starts political unrest and all these different battles and stuff in the universe. It's not like the Star Trek universe is perfect, but I'm saying if I found one of those places where it's like Risa when the weather machine is working, then I think it would be kind of amazing to go out and have a hobbit house situation. But as it stands on Earth, I'm not yet in a position to do that as much as I would like to be. I'm not going to have everything look absolutely perfect. I do want to live a life where things are very delightful and they're very pretty, but I'm also messy. I bring out all my stuff every day. It's not going to look like, I've got stuff everywhere. I have to have stuff everywhere in order to get my things done. It's just how my brain works, and it's how my space works. It's never going to look Insta-worthy or whatever. And I'm not trying to suggest that my life is just delightful and dainty and cute. I would like it to be more delightful and daintier and cuter. I really would. But some of the things that I have done in my life, while they do involve adding some beauty and eliminating some stress, are extremely simple things. Like, I consume beverages. Sometimes I need a new container for consuming beverages. And need is a weird thing to say, because you might have something that's not working for your needs. I had a lot of stuff. They weren't quite, mugs I like. For instance, I've been gifted mugs, or I would go get mugs and get the stuff that was really cute but really on sale. Because past trauma, don't spend money. It was what they call financial abuse. It's not just don't spend money, it's the money's not there, and when it is there, the sensation that everything you're doing with it is wrong, you're going to run out of it. There were a lot of bad things that came with it. And so part of me healing myself has been something I've been working on for years. Pinpointing different places in my life where I can feel less miserable and less post-traumatic with everything that I do. Used to be that way with every purchase. Now it's just not. It took me a lot of work. I had a lot of help as far as giving me the knowledge that I needed to heal from it, but it worked. I got to a better place where I was able to do things for myself. So when it's time for me to get a new version of something, like I'm thinking about this mug right now in front of me. I had other mugs, but they'd be too small, or they would be a shape where I'd sit it down and it doesn't feel that stable when you sit it down. This mug, it's curved just a little bit. It's tiny bit bottom heavy. You sit it down, it stays put. There's space in the handle for me to fit my fingers in comfortably. I can wrap a cozy around it to keep my beverage warm. It came with a stainless steel infuser. It has a perfectly fitted little ceramic, porcelain. It's a porcelain mug, and it has a matching porcelain lid. And so it keeps the warmth in. It's good for if I want to make a tea or, brew my own teas just out of spices and stuff that I have around. It's kind of the perfect mug. But after the life I was living, this is like a $15, $20 range mug. And for me, splurging on a mug that's anywhere near that price just wasn't a thing. So, however that sounds, whether you can fully relate or not, that was a huge thing for me. And it took me decades of living to be traumatized to the point where I was truly feeling terror reactions about buying something. But I saw this and I absolutely adored it. And I knew it was going to fix my daily beverage consumption problems. So instead of being sort of a messy, uncomfortable experience, it was going to turn into this beautiful, cozy experience. And that's what it's done. I splurged on this mug. It was a birthday gift from me to me. And it changed my life because all of these different issues I was having every day, drinking my beverages and not being able to, I don't know, the size just works for me. My mind always likes to overfill everything. I'm not sure why. It's something I've come to accept. I either have it overfilled or I feel like it's not full. I'm wasting space in the mug. I need to put more in. So having a huge mug like this has helped me kind of learn to maybe put an ounce or two less in there, but not feel like I'm going to just be dying of thirst, so to speak, because I can't fill up my mug and it's a tiny mug. I've got a huge amount of space. Even if I don't fill it up all the way to the top where I kind of want to automatically every time, I still feel like I'm going to have hours of cozy coffee while I'm trying to record one video correctly. And I have had hours of cozy coffee. I'm going to have some now. This was kind of a whole body, spirits. It was a holistic healing purchase for me. And I didn't have to purchase another mug. I had been dealing with the ones I had, but once I got this one, my daily issues with drinking vessels that didn't quite suit my needs went away. And I consider that to be a very romantic thing for me. I'm pro porcelain. We've got a product that, as long as it's in one piece, will be with you potentially forever. It's a long haul, high quality object. It does suit all of my needs, and now every day I feel cozy. It's a whole specific thing, right? It's not just like, oh, that's kind of like this is cozy. No. For me, cozy is a big deal. I feel cozy. I feel loved. It's me showing maternal love to myself. It's healing of old wounds. Something small like a mug, seemingly small like a mug, became rather a big deal for me. Actually, that's another thing. When you go through all of that with the financial stuff, it can make things seem way too precious. So I do always want to keep it, you know. You want to remain in balance, so to speak. You want to have it to where you appreciate it. Like, I adore the mug, but I also, because it meant so much for me to have it, I have to keep myself in a place where I'm not concerned if I should accidentally explode the thing out of my hand one day, as sometimes things do. Just, how did that happen? I didn't drop it. I sure didn't pick it up and hike it across the room, but it sure seems like I did. If something like that happens and the mug explodes into a million pieces, I'm still good in life. So there is something to that, the constant, you know, fight or trek toward a balance where you can have the appreciation that you have it, but you also don't get, and I'm mindlessly sloshing my coffee, hope that wasn't too loud, you also don't get too caught up in it. Because when you're talking about making little changes and physical changes and trying to deal with your environment, which is greatly what this is, my take on romanticizing life is very much about changing your experience of, excuse me, the physical realm. And a whole lot of that has to do, for a huge amount of us on this planet, with purchasing something, with something else you can buy, another object you can own. And I think that's where it can get to a place where some people just think, well, I want the romantic life aesthetic. I want to put that on social media. And it can seem like it's lost the point. And for some people are just going to be living that life, having that experience where they can try everything on as a trend, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Sometimes that's just how they're experiencing life, and all of it is a part of romanticizing their life because they're just doing what they enjoy. It could go overboard, or it could be that thing where you want to do more and it can never be enough. Even that is a spectrum. Some of the people who just have the romanticized life aesthetic are probably also getting something out of it that's very healthy and good for them in the moment, because sometimes people just like to change their style up. Maybe this is the style for the moment. But when I'm talking about it in the context of neurodivergent brains, my experience and us as a people, as the NDs, the autistic and ADHD experience for me is that I naturally took great pleasure in small things. And it seems like the crux of it is very often just to take pleasure in something that's not a massive ordeal. You're not trying to plan the world's most perfect over-the-top wedding that, has to take place in a cathedral, etc., blah, blah, blah. This isn't necessarily about events. You could work it into those, but it's kind of about the event of daily life. It's about getting up and doing your hair, for instance. Just about every day I get up and I do something to my hair, partly to get it out of the way. It's been a lot of hot weather recently, and so I've been just getting it out of the way. But one of the things that I did that was also another thing I splurged on in life, I started using hair sticks. Because long story short, I had a lot of sensory discomfort and issues with everything else I've always tried to use in my hair, whether my hair was loose or locked. And with it being locked, a lot of stuff like the tiny little hairpins, and there were some hairpins that were made, they were a spiral shape, kind of looked like a DNA strand, and you would take that and just place it in there and twist them, and I really adored those. But at a certain point I couldn't really use them anymore because I couldn't find a logical way to put them into my locked hair. That was going to become a nightmare. It would be it's not going to work. I'm trying not to go into the subject like crazy, but I found myself having all these different bits of stress because of the stuff I was using in my hair, and I'd always wanted to try hair sticks, but I hadn't bought them because, again, it was a thing like, oh well, I don't need that, and I could always get something less expensive if I need to try something, but I just wanted to buy. Now I have a collection of them, but these are some of my first ones. They're little ebony hair sticks, and the difference they make in my life is kind of amazing. Because every sensory nightmare that I had, there can be a trick to learning to use them, but they're very intuitive to me, so it seems easy, especially now that I use them. If I get them in wrong, they could pull my hair, but that just tells me they're in wrong, because when I know from experience when I have them incorrectly, they don't pull my hair like that. Just another mic check. And so I get these, and they're more expensive than a bag full of little metal things, or the scrunchies that I'm used to having, or that someone might give me as a gift. But the thing that they do, even though they cost more, is that they help me break out of being dependent upon all these objects that kind of torture me all day. The stuff that slides and slips, that can't hold your bun in place, because for me, nothing else could really hold my bun in place. These will hold a bun up all day. I've had moments where I'm going to lie down and go to sleep, and I forget they're in because they're just so comfortable, and the bun stayed up neatly all day. So then I'm lying there taking them out. I've got a little spot by the bed where I slide them in when I forget to take them out. They're so comfortable, and it's sensory care for me. It's something that's I think it's very romantic, and it's very old-fashioned, and it's something that I know from books and old movies and stuff, and it feels like this highly romantic event every day that I choose a hair stick and put it in my hair. But it's something that for me is a very small, reasonable, practical change. These are the things that I noticed functionally when I decided I'm going to start making purchases that feel good. Things that increase the quality of my life. I'm going to start buying art supplies. I was an artist all of my life, and I thought when I truly get out and I feel safe and comfortable, that is when I will buy art supplies. So a lot of stuff in my life did change to a lot of degrees, but I never quite reached that place, and I had to do a lot of healing in order to decide now is my time to buy art supplies. That's extremely romantic, because that is stroking a part of my soul that is very often untouched. My inner artistic self, my need to express myself, my need to leave a mark in some way that even if it's only just me for the rest of time, I can come back and look at, excuse me, hiccupy vibes, that I can come back and look at, that helps me to reflect, to learn, to just hone some aspect of me, to just get some extra energy out that day. Having something like that, and I do analog art forms, so having something like a notebook some nice paper sitting around. I'll have a nice notebook sitting around. It doesn't have to be a hardcore notebook. There have been times in my life, to this day, I will have inexpensive or like the dollar store notebooks. Sometimes you find those, they're really good. It can be hit or miss, but so can the expensive stuff. And you just go pick up a cute little notebook from the dollar store that has this sometimes holy grail paper inside and a ballpoint pen or whatever you've got laying around, and now you've got your own little sort of traveling art studio. I did not just waste coffee. I'm going to have to do all kinds of editing now. I was not going for that. Dang it. Not gonna lie, I don't think I've ever wasted coffee before while I was filming, but I just did, and it threw me a heck of a ways away from wherever it was that I was. I hope I finished my point. Something about a ballpoint pen, like it doesn't have to be a big deal. But yes, one of the ways in which I romanticize my life is splurge purchases, and they're very healing for me also, because I had lived that life of I can't do this, and it was a very different time. The advent of that trauma was very real, and very bad things would happen. There's no reason to get into it, but time has gone by and my life has shifted in different ways, so that when I could spend a little money on myself, I was in terror. I felt I had been terrorized, and I had a lot of pain and fear. A lot. I say terror for a reason. It was living with that experience, and I had that attached to every purchase. So when I got to a place where I would splurge on a mug and now my cozy's coming loose, what the heck, my coffee is betraying me. We can't have this happening, darling. I used to be in love with you. No. Splurging on something nice has been part of me romanticizing my experience of life, and it doesn't have to be a splurge, but it definitely has been something for me, and it has been something that I have used to get myself to a place where I no longer consider something like a leather notebook cover to be an impossible thing. Like I said, some of that trauma can put an extreme weight on things, and all of a sudden material objects can become almost like God, in that they seem somehow untouchable, laudable, desirable, but ultimately like something you could never truly possess or fully understand the experience of. I mean, that seems really heavy, but at a certain point in my life, I just realized, because I knew the psychology of it while it was happening to me, I was trying to stay in a good place and remain healthy. These experiences are just someone very ill, very sick, very demonic, and they're not about me. So I'm trying to keep myself in a balanced place. But that repetition of that horrible series of things just taught me all kinds of horrible things about money and objects. So I have used purchasing, and I have used purchasing beautiful things to change my mindset, and it's worked. I mean, what you do functionally teaches your brain, and you learn from those actions. So I would do what was necessary to calm myself, even if it was I'm spending $2, $3 in a store on something I don't need to live, but it felt like some kind of luxury to me, like in an art store, getting the little accessories, palette knives and things like that. They don't have to be expensive, but sometimes splurging on something for $2 or $3 made me feel like a queen in some way, because that inner portion of me that needed the fulfillment of, I'm an artist. Sometimes I want a proper tool that works for what I'm going for. Sometimes there's something else I can use, and sometimes I'm just really not having the experience I'd have if I just bought the proper palette knife, right? So sometimes I would splurge on something like that. It really did change my life, especially when I was trying to move paint around. I'm having this silky, slick, gorgeous experience I hadn't had before. So yeah, for me, there's a lot of purchasing involved. And sometimes it's just stuff where, let me take a very careful sip. Sometimes there's just stuff where I was going to have to make a purchase anyway. At a certain point, I needed to get more clothes. And to sum it up, part of my bad experience in life was I have a bunch of synthetic fabrics. They're not comfortable. They lose integrity after you wash them a few times. That really soft sweater that you got that turned out to be acrylic, it just starts to feel like it's made out of acrylic, right? And so I decided when I had to get new clothes, when the sweater degraded, when I needed new stuff, I want to get natural fibers. I want to invest in some cotton. I want to get linen outfits. And I was able to do that. It took me a lot of work to find some good options. But I did that because like when I was a child and I needed something, I was growing. I needed clothes right then. But as an adult, I have the luxury to be like, no, I'll keep wearing the outfits that aren't working for me while I find something that works better. I'll purchase one thing here, one thing there. I'll make my decisions. So when I needed to get new clothes for myself anyway, I just took that time and those funds and I chose what for me were better things. So I went from having the experience every day where I felt kind of gross and icky and not like myself, looking in the mirror, seeing these clothes that somehow just were not me anymore. I'd had this experience already once in life. Craziness happened and I ended up having it again. I'm looking in the mirror. It doesn't look like me. It doesn't feel like me. I don't feel like my best self every day. So adding that romance to it was deciding I'm going to get something that's better. I'm going to get materials that feel comfortable. And now I have things, just everyday simple things like a basic dress in a color I like. This one's red. I have some black. Black is my mainstay because that's my color. I love that. That's my favorite color to wear. And I have things where I can put them on every day. It feels like me. It looks like me. So by adding the romance, one of the most powerful additions was not just, it's not just that it was a powerful addition of something that I like. It was that it replaced something I didn't like. So instead of adding more clothes just because they're the cheapest thing I could find, the most convenient, I just chose to put that work and that effort in, again, patching over and healthfully working on healing that old trauma so I can be me, so I can wear clothes that aren't a mask, so I can put on some clothes that do not denote the worst things I'm going through in life. During a lot of my early years, adolescence, teenage years, everything I ever put on my body was a sign, a remembrance of the worst things I was going through in life. So even if I was able to get away for a little while, I had the mark of everything I went through on my body. So for me, taking away that memory of something that was hatred to me and replacing it with something that is indicative of love, it's loving me. It was feeling prompted at a certain time. Messages kept coming to me from everywhere, and God is telling me I need to actually, you're going to buy clothes. Buy something you like. It doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be a major life change. It could be that you need to get rid of old clothes and buy new clothes. So maybe it's possible to make a slightly different decision about what you're buying. If you're in a place where that's going to add something to your life.